Hello, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan. And today we're talking all about positivity, not the fake, not the toxic, just the grateful and everything will magically work out kind. No, I am talking about the kind of positivity that actually changes your life. I know, mind-blowing, groundbreaking. So let's get into it. And the reason I wanted to talk about this type of positivity is because over the past, since October, I guess, I lost my job. I don't think I've actually talked about it on the podcast all that often, or at all. If I have, well, you're hearing it again. I lost my job. I found out that I was losing my job in October, and then officially lost it in February 1st. And so for February and all of March and, most of April up until basically this week, I did not know where life was going to take me. I did not know what was going to happen. And I was getting rejection after rejection. I went through 2 rounds of interviews before I finally, on my lucky 13th round, finally found a job that I'm pretty ecstatic about. And oh my God, cut. Dog hair in my eye. And so basically with all of these things that were basic outside of my control, whether a corporate space decided, hey, she can do the job, outside of all that, I was really experiencing this moment of I'm still like happy in my life. I still have a full life. I mean, sure, not having a job, it's a big thing. I'm not saying it's not. But there was kind of this shift that was happening over these past 2 months, honestly, even since October, where it was kind of a blessing in disguise to have lost my job because that job was not a good fit for me. It was not something that I really wanted to be doing. While I liked where I worked and I liked the people I worked with, the commute honestly was just hell on my mental health. I would spend up to 2 hours sometimes trying to get home. And it was over like a 6 mile period and it would take me 2 hours. Just honestly super ridiculous. And so over these past few months, I've been having this shift that's allowed to see myself and see how I move and what can even be possible for me. And the more intentional that I've been about choosing a more positive mindset, more clearly I can see what actually is bringing me joy. What I found is that it's starting to feel like joy is what is fueling my dreams. And my dreams are starting to feel less of, I think sometimes dreams can feel like maybe one day, but I'm actually starting to feel a little bit of fruition happen. And I think maybe that's just because the past couple of years I've been working on things. I've been building up to things that I hadn't realized that I'd been building up to. But I do think it comes down to having this more positive outlook on my life and having this more idea that good things do in fact happen for me. So let's dive into it. So to start, I want to be very clear. Positivity is not pretending everything is fine when it's not. I've had hard seasons. I've been overwhelmed. I've been broke. I've been uncertain. I've had grieving versions of myself and people and plans that just didn't work out. And so this isn't coming from someone who just decided to be happy, to be so clear. This is coming from someone who realized that it's coming from someone who realized that if I stay in survival mode forever, I will never build anything beyond survival. In survival mode, that mindset is negative by design. Your brain is literally wired to look for threats. I've talked about this in my fear episode, which was way back, but I'll link it right here. But when our brain is wired for looking for threats, that's how we've survived as human. It's just innate within our bodies, and it's called a negative bias. And means your brain will always prioritize what's wrong, what's missing, and what could go wrong next. So of course, joy feels very far away when your brain is operating like that, and it feels almost impossible. So what started changing for me, it wasn't in fact my circumstances. I still didn't have a job. I still had bills to pay. Still had dreams and goals, but nothing had necessarily changed. What did change though was my focus. I started asking myself really simple questions like, what actually felt good today? What didn't drain me? When did I feel like my most self today? And at first the answers were small, like really small, like a quiet morning with coffee, a walk with my dogs, laughing at something stupid, recording a podcast episode where I actually felt like I was like saying something real. But those small moments, they started adding up. And I'm not saying that this happened in the past couple months. I'm not saying this happened in the past couple days. This happened over the past couple of years without me even realizing it. And here's where it gets really interesting though, because science actually backs this up. When you intentionally focus on positive experiences, your brain starts to rewire itself. And this is called neuroplasticity. The more you notice good things, the easier it becomes your brain to find them again. You're literally training your brain to see more of what feels good. Think a lot of us treat joy, or sorry, I think a lot of us treat joy as like a little special treat or a reward, like something we get after we've worked hard enough or healed enough or achieved enough. But what if joy actually was just data? What if it's information? Because when I started paying attention and prioritizing joy, I realized things that brought me joy were also pointing me towards alignment. Creating content, joy. Connecting with people, joy. Building something that's mine, joy. Noticing a pattern. And there's even more science behind all of this. When you experience joy, your brain releases chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. They're not just buzzwords. Dopamine is tied to motivation and reward, which means when you do something that brings you joy, your brain actually encourages you to do it over and over again. So it's not random. It's your brain helping guide you toward what feels meaningful. This is the part I really want you to hear though. Positivity is not fluff. It is genuine fuel. When you allow yourself to focus on what's working, even in small ways, what you end up doing is creating momentum. And momentum is what builds dreams. There's a psychologist, Barbara Fredrickson, who talks about something called, there's a psychologist named Barbara Fredrickson who talks about something called the broaden and build theory. Basically, positive emotions literally expand your ability to think, create, and problem solve. When you feel good, your brain becomes more open, more creative, and more willing to take action. When you feel stuck in negativity, your world genuinely gets smaller. You go into survival mode. So this idea that positivity helps you build your life, it's not just a nice quote. It's not just some fluff. It's not an affirmation. It's not some gimmick, some witch thing or anything like that. It's how your brain actually works. So recently, and or to give an example of this, of how you can start to see how positivity really reshapes your brain and creates those neural pathways for you to think more clearly, for you to think less negatively and less in that like, oh my God, here we go again mode. The day after I found out I got the job, I was incredibly thrilled. I was happy. There was so much relief. If anyone's out there that has lost their job, they understand what this feeling is. I think when you've lost your job, you get to a point where you can't say yes to trips. You can't say yes to doing big things with your friends. And you start to feel almost left out, even though you want your people to go and do the things that they want to do. But you also don't want to be like a burden and be like, well, I can't afford that. And then you make them almost feel bad because they asked. And so that's kind of a place that I had been in. And so the first day that I woke up, I just remember feeling like this relief where I'm like, I can actually start to plan my life again. I can start to feel good again. I can start to just release the shackles that was unemployment. But what ended up happening is that joy was very fleeting for just a few minutes. Because what ended up happening is I got a notification off of my cat box that my cat had gone to the bathroom 36 times. Now I have a 12-year-old boy cat, tuxedo baby. I'll put an image of him right here so you can see how cute he is. That's a bad sign. That most likely means he has UTI. He might potentially have a blockage, which like in male cats it's not fatal, but it's a very expensive surgery. I want to remind y'all, I didn't have a job at this time. I hadn't gotten a paycheck. This was day one after having signed my offer. And so I started panicking. I started having this moment of like, oh my God, like I don't have money. I don't have $3,000 to drop on a bladder surgery. I can't take him to the emergency vet. Long story short, what ended up happening is I said, wait a minute. Think about this for a second. You are going into worst case scenario mode. You are going into survival mode. I love my kitty cat. I love him so much. He was my first fur baby. I love him so much. But didn't something like this happen the year before? And you got told when you took him to the vet, you did all these tests, went home with a $1,200 bill, and they told you to get a cat to drink more water. Let me say that one more time. They wanted me to encourage a cat to do something, like drink water. I don't know if anybody's out there that's ever tried to encourage a cat to do fucking anything. Doesn't work out for you. So I said, we're not spending $1,200 to be told that he's dehydrated. So I did some research and I found out I can get him some urinary food. And I went to the store, I got that. And guess what? $20 later, he's been perfectly fine. And I didn't have to spend $1,200 to be told that he's dehydrated and he's back to his normal thing. This is just to go to show that when you start to think more positively, what ends up happening is you break that cycle of negative thoughts. Normally, I would have spiraled. I would have been like, of course. Okay. Of course, this is what happens to me. Of course, I'm not allowed to feel joy. Of course, I had a moment of joy and now I'm being punished. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? Have you ever felt that way where a moment of joy happens and then just something happens to go wrong? Just the tiniest thing, but it feels like a kick in the nuts. And that's where I was kind of at, where I was just like, of course this happens to me. But I realized I don't want to live that way. That is still a sense of survival mode. I want to be somebody that can experience joy and not be holding my breath for the thing to go wrong later. And it is difficult, especially I'll be honest, as a single woman who lives in a very expensive city, there are things that are going to go wrong. There are things that are going to that happen outside of my control. My dogs are going to get sick. My cat's going to get sick. Rent is going to increase. Groceries are going to increase. Gas prices are going to go up. But I'm not going to let that bring down my moment of joy from watching the sunset or from laughing with my friends or from just trying to experience life in all of the beauty that it has to offer. So let's get a little practical here because I don't want this to just sound like good. I don't want to sound like this person that's like, la, 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 just think positively and things will change and things will start to shift. Well, they will. I want you to be able to actually use a more positive mindset and understand that there are practical ways to start doing this. So here are 5 simple ways to start incorporating positivity into your life. So first, start noticing, not necessarily fixing. You do not need to overhaul your life overnight. I will say this about any advice that I ever give or any tips, is overhauling your life overnight. It doesn't work for a lot of us. For some people, maybe it does. I know that there's people that have done it. I have people in my life who, they kicked bad habits just like that because they decided that they weren't going to do it anymore. Do it cold turkey. I don't think that that works for everybody. So what I want you to do instead is just start paying attention. Ask yourself at the end of the day, what felt good today? Even if it's small. We're not fixing your life yet. We're just gathering data. So if you enjoyed a good cup of coffee, write that down. If you got to spend an extra 15 minutes on your walk playing with your dogs or your kids, write that down. If your dinner today was just spectacular, your Diet Coke was just chef's kiss. If you cut into the avocado and the little brown part was teeny tiny and you had so much avocado, that is moments of joy. Those are things that are giving you that little flush of serotonin, dopamine, and that's what we want to start noticing. Next, I want you to name your joy in real time. When something feels good, say it out loud or write it down. Say, I like this. This feels good. This helps your brain actually register the moment instead of letting it just pass by unnoticed. Because what you're trying to do is reroute your brain and rewire your brain so that it starts to seek those things out. So when your brain is seeing something, your mouth is saying something, you're basically closing the gap and you're making your brain focus on that gap. Next, you're going to follow the energy, not the expectation. A lot of us are used to doing what we should do. Start paying attention to what gives you energy instead. That's usually a clue towards that alignment that I've been talking about, even if it doesn't make sense yet. Here's an example. I'm somebody who does like to move my body and work out. I have wanted to start running. I've started and stopped so many times, but what I've learned is running does not give me joy. It just doesn't. It looks cool. I think the people that do run, I think I used to run cross country. So I know that it's in me. The thing is in my adult life, it's not anymore. And it doesn't bring me joy. You know what brings me joy? Going on a 3-4 mile walk with my friends or by myself, not running. It's just things like that. Walking gives me energy. I can walk 15, 16,000 steps in a day and be perfectly fine, feel energized, feel happy, feel good. If I go on one run, I'm exhausted because there was so much mental energy that went into going on that run. I had to work myself up to go and do it. And for some people, it's a form of exercise that's great and everything. I'd rather go on a walk. And you know what does? What walking does for me? It puts me in alignment, and that's for me and me alone. The fourth thing, reduce what consistently drains you. You don't have to quit your job or change your whole life, but start noticing some patterns. What always leaves you feeling heavy, exhausted, or disconnected? Where can you create even a little bit of space or boundary there? Maybe it's you not taking work calls when you've left the office. Maybe it's you taking a 30-minute walk after work, or it's trying to think of something else, or it's coloring, or it's reading a book, or whatever. But it's something that allows you to create just a little bit of space between the thing that, because a lot of the times it's our jobs that are holding us back, or it's a chore or something like that. When we can give ourselves just 5 minutes, 10 minutes of joy before the hard thing or after the hard thing, our brains will start to seek out those moments of joy more and more. Our final thing, and I think this is probably the most beneficial tip that I can give, which is let joy lead, even if it feels just like a small thing. Stop waiting for joy to be earned. Let it lead you. Let it influence your decisions, your routines, your priorities, because that's how you start building a life that actually feels good to you, not to somebody else, but to you. This fifth one that I'm talking about is letting joy lead. I don't think I really expected this to change everything so much as it has, because when you do start feeling even a little bit more positive, just a little bit, you start making different decisions. You start saying yes to things that align. You start saying no to things that don't, and the things that drain you. You start trusting yourself a little bit more. You start dreaming a little bit bigger. And suddenly, your life starts shifting. Not overnight, and definitely not perfectly, but noticeably. I am currently sitting in a life where, or in a moment in time, where for the first time, I genuinely feel so much gratitude and love for all of the versions of me that have existed before me, because they believed that this life was possible. They believed that joy could be here. They believed that I could go after these goals, that I could sit in front of this camera, that I could, write my first ever novel, that I could be this soft person in my writing and could be vulnerable in all these different ways. And they believed that. And slowly, over time, I have started to seek out more things that bring me joy and say no to things that don't. For instance, running. I'm not running anymore. Not doing it. I found a job that fits my life and fits my lifestyle in a way that makes me feel, it's only been a few days, but I can see kind of the more joyful parts of it. I can see the hope. I can see the someday soons. And I used to be the type of person that would focus on such negative things, all of the things that could go wrong, all of the things that could, potentially harm me or hurt me. And I think the biggest shift that's happened with thinking more positively and believing that good things happen for me is that I now understand that big, big, big dreams, those big, bold, life-changing ones, they start small. And they start with these moments where you start to recognize these moments of joy, where you start to have little interactions with people that you were like, I enjoyed that. Like when I check out at the grocery store with a human being, I go, I enjoyed that little conversation that I had. I hope they did just as much as me. Or you notice that, the sun is just a little bit brighter and it feels good on your skin, or that the flowers are blooming, or just you start to slow down and just notice all of the good things that are happening in your life without you having ever realized it. And I think that's the most life-changing part of this positivity mindset, is that you start to slow down. You start to want to be more in the moment instead of focusing on my to-do list, or what do I have to get done next, or what do I have to do now? And you start to honestly become a kid again. I've found that like joyful twinkle back in my face. There's more life, there's more energy. I'm more willing to just kind of want to be silly rather than just be this stern, serious person who's always focusing on all of the shit that I can't control. And so choosing joy is more than just, fake it till you make it, girl. It's more about putting your happiness first. And that's not in a selfish way, that's in a self-care way. And I think when we start to if more of us would start to focus on joy, focus on these small things that are bringing us joy, what we'll start to learn is that we'll gain the momentum for the bigger things, and we'll be able to sit in those big things and be happy with them. Because the truth is, the more you allow positivity in your life, the more you expand your capacity to even see what's possible. And once you can see it, you can start building it. So if you're in a season right now where everything feels heavy, I'm not going to tell you to just be positive. That's not what I'm here to do. But I am going to invite you to just look for one thing. Just one moment in your day that feels good. One thing that brings you even a little bit of joy. And start there. Maybe it's coming home 15 minutes early. Maybe it was the coffee that you ordered being just the most delectable thing that you've had. Because this might be the very thing that leads you back to yourself and forward into the life that you're trying to actually build. And before we wrap, I have something really special to share with you. I haven't had a podcast episode for the past couple weeks because I've been very busy. Very, 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 very busy finishing my debut romance novel. It will be officially coming out on April 22nd, which still feels a little surreal to say out loud that I am doing that. And if you've been enjoying the themes that we talk about here, growth, healing, choosing yourself, building a life that actually feels good, you're going to love this story. There's some romance, not some romance, the whole entire story is a romance story. And I will actually be making the first chapter available for you to download for free. So you can get a little taste of it before the full release. You'll be able to buy it it will be only an ebook for right now, but the goal is to one day soon see my book in one of my favorite indie romance bookstores here in Seattle and across other, platforms and stores and such. But you'll be able to buy it on Kindle or Amazon Kindle, as well as a couple other places, but you'll be able to see those updates on my website. So if you subscribe for that, you can go ahead and check those out. You'll also be able to buy the book on my website as well. But I'm really, really proud of this one. This is one of those things where I talk about where, you build to something bigger than you ever could have imagined. And this is one of those things for me. So as always, thank you for taking up space with me today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, post it to your story, tag me. I want to hear what's bringing you joy lately. Come on, we need to be filling our feeds with more joy instead of seeing breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Breaking news, I'm tired of it. I want to see some joy. I want to see some happiness. I want to see some light. I want to see some positivity. And don't forget, everything is linked down in the show notes. I hope you find some joy this week. Kisses.